you look back in time from the 1940s through the 50s and the 1960s, the portrait that was painted for America anyway, nice, decent, hard-working people, family-oriented people, heavily belief in religion and decency. Families got together, they dressed nice, they went to functions and they got together with families and enjoyed the finer things in life. They didn't cuss or say filthy words, and we had a lot of respect. At least that's how it's portrayed through the TVs and movies at those times. And it was no different in the television shows and the movies and also the magazines. If you look back at a 1960 issue here of Luthez on the cover, notice how clean it is and how sharp it is. And here's your picture of your, young, muscle-bound, red-blooded American male, world heavyweight champion of wrestling, and just picture perfect body and build, his championship belt. The magazine is perfect, clean, white pages, and really speaks to who the magazine is and and what the champion resembles. And it'd be no different in the 70s for certain things, like Sports Illustrated, your typical number one selling sports magazine in the 1970s. There's a shot of the Pittsburgh Steelers beating the Dallas Cowboys in the Super Bowl. Another one from 1975, or 76, against the Oakland Raiders. Typical magazines of that time. Here is Terry Bradshaw running in for the touchdown for their first Super Bowl victory. And you can take that same layout for the sci-fi magazines, even the horror magazines at that time. They were pretty much just, a picture of the movie, and you'll see Dracula and Frankenstein, and you wouldn't see any type of gore. And for Star Wars in 1977, opened up a whole new genre of science fiction, and still it has that really cool, not say kiddie look, but, it'll attract the kids. Most definitely would be attracted to something like this. So the question comes up with me a lot was, what was it that took a beautiful magazine like this, just a few short years later, to become something like this? We're going to take a look at the filthy, grimy, sleazy 1970s and all its blood, its freaks, its sex, and the gore that went along with it. What a difference a decade makes in the comparison to the years before. What was it? What was it that changed? I'm thinking, was it the Depression and the crash of the economy and the Vietnam War? And all this stuff is being bottled up, and kids are getting sent off to war and not coming home, and people are getting pissed off, and all that bottled up rage just happened to explode all over 42nd Street, New York City, for one main of the places, and also from here to California. The shit was just everywhere, out of nowhere. Wrestling magazines were among the first to capitalize on that. You didn't see Sports Illustrated put a cover like this of someone getting beat up. You never seen a boxing magazine put a boxer on the cover of a magazine bloodied up. They wouldn't embarrass the boxer like that. They'd always show matches inside the ring, or they posed for the cover. They never showed them gushing blood like this. Wrestling was the first to bring you some absolute gore, and we're going to touch on 3 sections in this video. We're going to look at all the blood. We're going to look at another section that is the girls and the sex and the TNA, and then we're going to look at all the freaks that were in wrestling and touch base on who they were in the 1970s. March of 1970, right out of the gate, your March issue would be hitting the newsstands in January, because that's how they were, a lag time. So your very first magazine out of the gate, blood-soaked cover here, and you're like, what the hell's going on? Is this guy dead? He's getting carted off by the police. There's blood everywhere. Holy shit, I gotta buy this. And meet Penny's new sexy partner right across the top, right now, with the sexploitation right there. You weren't seeing stuff like that in the 1960s and the 50s, most definitely. Now, this is going to be no rhyme or reason order-wise. It's just going to be everywhere in the 70s. You'll be from 72, might go to 77. But it will be categorized when I get to the females. And you will see some nudity in the magazines here. I'm going to show what's inside. And then when I get to the freaks section, I'll tell you when we switch that section also, so you know where the difference lies. Because a lot of it looks the same almost through. But it is sectioned off. Here's an awesome-looking magazine cover if you're a fan of blood. Can the Slaughter Be Stopped? May of 1973, blood-soaked Terry Funk, Bobby Heenan, who we're going to see a lot of, and also Superstar Billy, who bled a lot early on in the early 70s, before he got all the posed covers when he was champion. Dirty Dick Murdoch. How can the blood-chained match of Dirty Dick Murdoch turn him into Clean Dick Murdoch? I mean, what the fuck kind of a title is that? Here he is, man, full of blood, head to toe. The Sheik is on the bottom, about to get his face snapped off with a python here, being pushed over into his face by Johnny Powers. Sammartino up here, winning the WWF Championship from Stan Stasiak on April of 74 Inside Wrestling. Perhaps no one bled better, definitely no manager bled better, but perhaps nobody bled better than Bobby Heenan, especially for being a manager. A lot of people mistake him as being just a manager. He was also a wrestler too. The guy was fantastic in the ring. If you've ever seen him, you got to check him out. He could sell great. He took huge bumps. He was enjoyable to watch. You know, some of it was a little over the top and ridiculous when he went flying, but it was just part of the fun. But man, he could bleed. I mean, we're going to see a series of magazine covers with him, all bloodied up. He has been on more magazine covers than any other manager ever, and most of them were all soaked blood shots. He really wore it well. This one being probably the number one sought after issue from Bobby Heenan. I mean, what a mess. Fuck, cut his face from, ear to ear, straight across, and the blood just came screaming down. Wore it just like he was wearing a mask. November of 1970's issue, plus the rapist that invades the girls' dressing room. I mean, where are these headlines coming from? What the hell happened from Lou Thez and the great Buddy Rogers to all of a sudden rapists and blood and guys getting carried off by the police? Holy shit. You'll see this cover a few different times throughout the months as we go on. This photo was used, I believe, 3 times, and here it is used again. I really like this one too because it pops off nice with the white background with the yellow, and the red just really pops out cool on Bobby's face. It was a high-selling magazine because of that blood. 1 second, hold on, guys. It was a high-selling magazine because of the blood, so they repopped this like 3 times just to make the sale. That's how popular that one was. Taking a look out at Terry Funk in a chain match, and he is covered from head to toe, literally, being escorted back by his brother Dory Funk, the world champ. Good looking shot of Terry gushing blood, September of 72. This is another one with Bobby the Brain Heenan. Doesn't look like him, almost looks like an older Ray Stevens here, but Ray didn't look like that in 72. Another great shot. It's all on his teeth and his mouth, pouring down his face, and when that blood hit his whitish gold blonde hair, it really popped out great on TV. And talking about here the Jolly French Giant making the wrestling scene in the United States in August of 72. Bobby's back again with the third time with that same cover. Also a look at the Mummy making his appearance. We're going to see him a little bit later on. This is December 1972. Bobby Heenan. Bobby again had terrific wars as he was managing the Blackjacks and in both AWA and WWA in Indianapolis, Dick the Bruiser's territory. And he was always in a 6-man or a tag team. He would also be in a couple of singles matches too, but here he is in a tag team 6-man with Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher, and his face is just sopping red. Great looking shot. This is September 1970. Here's Bobby again with the Blackjacks, and Mulligan's got a little bit of blood on him in the corner up top here, but again, man, Bobby is drenched in blood in September 1972. Bloodbath of the year. And it's got 27 falls, 44 minutes of gory action. Take a look inside. So there they are advertising. Go inside. The blood is here. That is what the people wanted. When you keep something suppressed for so long, it's just going to combust somewhere, and it's just going to come out. And it came out on society. You know, the world changed, people changed. Biker gangs started forming. You know, I mean, there was always gangs, but I mean, spread wide. MCs started popping up everywhere. People were pissed off and they had enough, and their anger was coming out in the 1970s, man. August 1971, we got Heenan again in the corner, also bloodied up with the Baron. Baron's not bleeding here. He's wearing Bobby's blood. There's not even a cut on the Baron, I don't think. What a shot. Also, Pedro and Stan Stasiak talking about the title change, August of 1971. April 1971, another shot of Bobby Heenan here. On the bottom, a smaller shot. Nonetheless, it's Bobby during the match, and there he is, bloodied up in the center of the ring. April 71, the wrestler. I get a thrill. The hot blood runs down my face, says Bobby Heenan. And there it is again. I mean, different photo, different company now. Big Book of Wrestling putting this one out in May of 75. The Sheik is in a chokehold here, also gushing blood. And now we're seeing women on the bottom. Apartment wrestling. Wow, what is that? We got to find out and see if that thing works out. I'm sure it's not going to last. Bobby and the Baron once again appearing on the cover now of Inside Wrestling, June of 1972. Bobby Heenan again. I told you, there's a ton of magazines with Bobby Heenan. And here's another one. Don Leo gets the main page, standing tall, Inside Wrestling, July of 74. But another great shot of Bobby. Bobby gets a smaller shot here. A bunch of guys. Gypsy Joe, and this is America's Wrestling Guide. This was the last 3 or 4 issues from Wrestling Guide. It became America's Wrestling Guide for 3 or 4, and then it ceased to exist right after this. 75, Wrestling Guide was finished. August of 1975's Wrestling Guide, one of the last few. Official Wrestling, Bobby Heenan once again with Jimmy Valiant. Both of them a bloody mess on the cover. This is a short run also, Official Wrestling, and it's called Yearbook right here, real small. If you're looking for that, make sure you put Yearbook. There's also one called Official Wrestling, and it says Annual, real small. This didn't last long. It had maybe 8 or 9 magazines, I forget the total amount, and then it went to a small mini book size, like a pocket-sized book, for the rest of their issues. A lot of people don't know that. I show that in the Official Wrestling magazine video. If you're trying to hunt these issues down, then you can't find certain months, they're in a book form. Bobby again. Now, even Wrestling News, who treated wrestling with respect, who didn't sensationalize it, put false stories out, and kept it as a sport, they never put out a bloody cover, ever. I believe this is the only one that I've ever noticed with Wrestling News having a bloody cover. I mean, I could be wrong, there could be one more, but there was none with Wrestling News. They didn't do shit like that. Even they capitalized on it, man. What a great shot, close-up shot of Bobby in the blood-soaked forehead. Holy Christ. Bobby again in another match with, I'm going to say Jose Lothario, Luis Martinez in a strap match here. Bobby's getting all kinds of gimmick matches and soaked blood once again on Wrestling Guide, December of 1974. That was a big look back at Bobby Heenan. A lot of magazines for a manager, wouldn't you say? He got more coverage than most of the wrestlers did, probably more than a lot of wrestlers did. Inside Wrestling, January of 1975, and we got Dick the Bruiser. What a cover. No teeth. It looks like he's missing an eye. Blood pouring down his face. I mean, can you imagine? Hey, Mom, can you buy me this magazine? She'd be looking at it like, what the fuck is this? Wow, what a difference from the early years. And what an awesome cover for guys like us who love the blood and violence of it all. His partner, get out of here. My cat's coming over. He hasn't made an appearance on film in a while. I'm trying to scoot him out of here. His partner, the Crusher, on the cover now. Bloodbath in Chicago, Inside Wrestling, March of 1972. And I just remember looking at this magazine when I was a kid saying, oh, Jesus, is this guy dead? What the hell's going on, man? They've never seen shit like this. Back room, locker room shot, guys getting choked out on the floor, and you're a kid and you're believing wrestling's real, and you're like, not knowing what's going on. I got to have this issue. Look at this mug. Another one. This is in here by accident, though. Sorry, this is from the 60s, 65, I believe. But again, another good shot of the Crusher. Half-dried blood, all coagulated on his face. It's almost black to the point where it's all over his neck and his hair. Jesus Christ, what a cover. Wow. Ray Stevens and the Crusher locked up inside of the Victory Sports Wrestling Annual for 1973. Different than the other annuals that I was telling you about with the yearbook and the annual. These are Stanley Westons. Whenever you see Victory Sports, that means it's a Stanley Weston issue. This is I'm trying to see the exact date here. Doesn't even have a month. It's a quarterly issue, come out 4 times. Who knows which one it was. It's summer. It could have been in the winter time of '73. The Japanese put out a few bloody magazines as well. They were no strangers to putting the blood on it. And Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher, again, here, half of his face looks like it was just gnawed off. Again, he looks like he's missing an eye, has no eye showing, and they just look like 2 maniacs, no teeth, blood and guts. They were the Road Warriors before the Road Warriors with a lot more wrestling talent. Crusher and the Bruiser go to Japan, take on Giant Baba, and they were there for several matches with a bunch of different guys. But here's just one with Baba on the cover, and he's getting choked out with the rope. That's a rarity, especially in all Japan, because they really didn't do shit like that. They kept it respectful. They kept the rings clean. They didn't fuck around. They really didn't have objects come into the ring. I mean, they were mad at you when you punched them. They want you to keep it to a clean wrestling match. Tony Marino, who I used to call Jack Briscoe, or I said somebody else before. I didn't know who this was on the cover. I just assumed it was Jack until one of you guys told me it was. I can't remember. Maybe Eric K. or Mr. Cruz. It was probably both of you guys told me that it was Marino. Good bloody shot here. The yearbook, 1974, issue number 8. Ben Strong has an issue. Good bloody cover of Wilbur Snyder, April 1973, talking about some blood matches inside and what is turning wrestling so violent. Victor Rivera, another guy who is no stranger to being busted wide open, and also got several covers looking that way, but his partner Dino Bravo, July of 1975 here. Good looking shot, and now you got your Apartment Girls on the bottom, becoming more of a mainstay. Chief Wahoo McDaniel, on several covers, especially in the 80s, all bloodied up. He was always a good bleeder as well. October 1974, The Wrestler. Classy Freddy Blassie picking a chunk out of the bloody forehead. John Tolos in Los Angeles. This is the magazine that got bloody, that Freddy Blassie got nicknamed the Vampire by the Japanese people. He was known for biting people, making them all bleed. They thought he was a maniac, and they nicknamed him the Vampire. There's an article for that. Let me see if I have it close. Yeah, I do. There's a better article and more pages in it in this issue of March of '71. Horror in the Box, and they're talking about Blassie's match with Tolos and all the blood and shit. So it's covered on this. This is actually another tough issue to find as well. March of '71, The Wrestler. Freddy Blassie, back to him again. I've never seen anyone so soaked in blood in my entire life. His entire body's covered. It looks like he's wearing a red jumpsuit from top of the head to the bottom of his feet, soaked in blood, man. Look at this one. October 1970. This is also This Is Your Life, San Martino. And this is the issue that pissed off Bruno and made him not talk to Stanley Weston anymore until Bill Apter got with him and apologized for all the fucked up articles that they put out that was all like not true. And they did a reshoot of his story in like 71 or 2, and Apter is the one that covered the story and patched things up. That's all in his book. And this is the issue he was talking about in his book. Freddy Blassie again now on another cover, soaked with blood in the corner, still feuding with John Tolos in November of 1971. Tolos again taking on Mil Mascaras. And here's something different. We're not used to seeing this now. Bleeding from the mouth. Like, holy shit, what's going on? We know he bled from the forehead. They bled over the eye. But blood coming out of his mouth? Holy Christ, I've never seen anything like that. Automatically sucked you right into it and wanted to see what was going on. The only time I ever remember seeing that was Manny Fernandez coming off the top rope on the Invader and jumping on his chest, and he was spitting up blood. I was like, holy shit. I mean, you're thinking it was real. It was like so realistic looking. Never heard of that ever been done before. And then here it is early in the 70s, 73 exact, doing that. And in a headlock against Mascaras in a really rare butterfly mask. You don't see that very often, never. I think it's the only cover with him on it. Rare mask. Late 70s and the rest of his career throughout the 80s and 90s, he would stick to that one silver or gold mask. Early on, he had some of the most awesome masks, man. I have several magazines that I show all his magazine faces on, but man, they were something. I wish he would have kept changing them out like that. John Tolos again Continue on with the Sheik. They would have Hell of a War together over in Los Angeles, January 73's issue of Sports Review. This is either second or third issue of Sports Review. This is January. This is probably the second issue of Sports Review. Told us again, taking on the Sheik, Inside Wrestling, both men bloodied up. He's got a foreign object in his hand, getting ready to stab the Sheik in the forehead. August 72, Inside Wrestling. Buddy Colt never made it to too many covers, but all three of the covers that I know him to be on were all bloodied up. And this is a good-looking one of Buddy in the back room. Yearbook 1974. Joe LeDuc was also another good bleeder. Known one half of the Canadian Lumberjacks from Canada, wrestled mostly in Montreal, throughout Lawler's territory, out in Portland. Don't believe he made it to the WWF. He could have. I don't recall him ever being there, though. Superstar on top, along with Chief J. This is November of 73, and the blood's just pouring down his face, all over the hand here. The guy holding his head up. Looks like a horror movie. Another good shot of Joe here with Superstar on the cover of March 1975, and the blood is pouring down his face. Victor Rivera, who we seen a little while ago, I remember this magazine freaking me out because I was like, oh, wrestling's fake, this is that. I'm like, well, that blood is real. The doctor's coming over here with stitches and stitching the guy up. Inside the magazine, you see the stitches getting put on his head. Brought back that much believability to it, going the extra mile, seeing the extra things that they're doing, kind of just, it helps. And kayfabe was, a great thing, and they had a lot of shit that made you question it until it all got ruined and taken away, and you'll never get it back again, which is really sad. I remember seeing this in the back issues of the little, 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch back pages. And I would always like, who is this guy with the long black hair? And what does this thing hide behind his shoulder? I mean, what is this? Because we all used to look at those back issues, and you kind of knew who your favorite wrestlers were because you knew their silhouette, you knew how they moved, you knew how they looked in the magazine. So you could look at those little back issue squares, and you could pick out most guys who were on the cover. And this one was a bitch. None of us knew who it was. Mad Dog Vachon. I don't even think I ever heard of Mad Dog Vachon, honestly, until I figured this out who this was later on. No idea who it was until I actually physically laid eyes on it, and I was like, wow, this is what that magazine looks like? Because you never knew what it looked like, and you never knew what color it was. You just imagining what color it might be, and you're like, wow, this is red and this is orange and that one's purple. Holy shit, I never knew any of that. That was like another fun part of ordering the shit through the mail. You didn't really know what it was going to be, you didn't know what it was going to look like, and it just popped right at you and it grabbed a hold of you. And for us magazine lovers, man, I mean, we're still here looking at it because we still love it. Good soaked bloody bottom here, man. 3/4 of his body soaked in blood. Pedro gets the main shot of the Ben Strong on the cover of November 73. The Valiants, who were no strangers to getting bloodied up. This is them taking on Bruno and Dick the Bruiser in Indianapolis, September of 74. And Bruno again, now back to the Worldwide Wrestling Federation and is the champion, and who is doing this to Bruno Sammartino, bloodbath at the Garden. Open up the pages inside to find out who's doing it. Superstar Billy on a couple early 75 and down, I guess he would be mostly bleeding on some of his magazines. March of 75. This magazine's a mess. It's out of focus. It's all blurred. It almost looks like a 3D picture when you put the glasses on, those fake glasses, and you can actually see it in color. I'm sure it doesn't work like that, but what a weird out of focus print that Stanley Weston never did shit like that. It was very strange. You'd expect it from Wrestling Guide, and Official Wrestling, and Wrestling Review, but not Stanley. Another good shot of Superstar. Didn't even know this was him. I mean, you kind of thought it was, but you couldn't be sure because he never posed like that. He was always clean and neat and proper. And of course, you see the punching bag in the back of his throat, mouth open, wide open. Jimmy Valiant on the bottom, also soaking in blood here on Inside Wrestling, October of 75. Another oddball shot of Superstar, blood pouring straight down his face. Billy Graham charges jealousy did this to me. It's about all the wrestlers that are jealous of him, that are attacking him because he's so beautiful and his body is so beautiful, and they're trying to carve it up and destroy it. So that's where the jealousy is coming from. Save you from having to read it. Dusty Rhodes with Superstar later on in the years. Now this is 1981, but it's a 1978 match of the bull rope cowbell match. Good looking shot of both dudes soaked. Superstar bled awesome when he was champ, and the match with Harley Race NWA versus WWF title versus title was no different. Both guys soaked in a 60-minute bloody rainy night outside in Miami, May of 1978. Dusty and Superstar, again, they sold a ton of magazines. This bull rope match sold a ton of magazines and sold out a ton of arenas. A few videos ago, I tell you exactly how many bull ropes they did, how many strap matches they did. It was upwards to 8, and then like 15 total between the straps and the bull ropes. That was hot everywhere, and the magazines were no different, man. That was, put these two on the cover was an instant 75 cents in the cash register. Again here, Superstar on the bottom, Andre and Dusty in the strap match, and most likely from their match in Florida. This is spring of 1978. Dusty and another bull rope with the Mongolian Stomper. This is where we hate it, shitty little magazines like this, because they killed the money shot. You put your header across the face of Dusty Rhodes, and that's the blood shot. Why would you do that? If you pulled it back just a little bit further and out here a little bit and a little bit smaller, it would have been such a great shot, but they didn't care. It was like, hurry up, print it, out of focus, blurred, it don't matter. Get it out there and sell it. And Stanley Weston took a lot more pride in his magazines, and it came through on his beautiful covers. And this is no different. Superstar giving San Martino the first rematch after losing the title to Superstar in the Garden on the cover of May 1977. This was the match that Gorilla Monsoon was the referee. Here, Superstar is on the cover of Wrestling Training Illustrated from that same match, and soak in blood. Look at that great shot of their August 1976 cover. I liked Wrestling Training Illustrated a lot. They did it different. It's all original photos. It wasn't like recycled photos from Apter's old magazines. Dan Laurie took all his own shit, and it was mostly catered towards bodybuilders inside. So you see a different side of the wrestlers. They were working out. You'll see them in the gym training. They'll talk about their training regimens and their diets. So Wrestling Training Illustrated was an awesome magazine that didn't last long, but it jumped on the big craze of the 70s magazines when wrestling exploded. If you don't have any of these, definitely check them out. I guarantee you'll like them. The pages are like, slick and glossy like Sports Illustrated. Wasn't around but a handful of years. Actually, it was out from 76 to 82, but they didn't have 12 issues every year. Some years they only had 2 issues, but they're definitely worth it. If you're a collector, I would grab some of those. And they put a lot of bloody covers out. We're going to see some more as we go on. Blackjack Mulligan squeezing the claw hold on a blood-soaked Harley race defending the NWA World Championship, March 1979, Inside Wrestling. Man, look at the blood down the face, all down his stomach, down his legs. Great shot. Another shot of Blackjack Mulligan. Now he's on the bottom, Flair on top, getting ready to do whatever maneuver to him in September of 1978. The wrestler, growing up, as I was saying before, looking through the back issues, you always kind of wonder, is that Graham? I don't know if it's Flair. Flair really wasn't a name yet, so he really wasn't on many covers. So a lot of us thought it was Graham, and when we ordered it and got it, it's like, it's not Graham. But that was the price you had to pay for guessing. You didn't know what it was back then. It was like, whatever you got, and you were stuck with it. June of 1979, Maniac Mark Lewin, not on many covers at all. Should have been on a lot more. Taking on Dusty Rhodes again in a bull rope match. Good bloody shot, Dusty and Lewin. Superstar getting choked out by Dusty on the Wrestler, February 78, again with the rope. There was no bull rope matches in the 60s. There was no, death matches in the 60s. That shit didn't start until the 70s when things got a lot grimier. Superstar Billy had a brother, Crazy Luke, and just as big, just not muscular, big as in heavy-wise, thick guy, fat, and also bled great. And inside the issue of 1974 yearbook, you'll see some more pages of Crazy Luke inside. He was only on 2 or 3 magazines, not on many at all. Was very much dismissed by the magazines. Here's another one, Wrestling Review, October of 75 with Crazy Luke. Crazy Luke Graham bleeds more than any other wrestler. And in the corner, his brother Billy getting armbarred by Johnny Valentine. Wrestling Review, 1975. Another manager making the cover, Captain Lou. And talk about blood-soaked. Man, his entire stomach and his face. It looks like he's wearing a red shirt. Inside, the bloodiest photos we have ever dared to publish inside Official Wrestling. So right here, we want you to buy our magazine. We got the bloodiest photos ever. It sold like hotcakes, and what a tactic. Everyone was doing it. Every magazine company was doing it. Official Wrestling, July 75. Jimmy Valiant on the Wrestling Guide. So we're going to start seeing some of these lesser known popular magazines that just started putting magazines out. You'll see now they're going to start putting blood on their covers. They're going to start putting half-naked girls on the covers with bikinis on just to make a sale because that's what sold. Whatever they lacked in good covers, they lacked up with TNA and blood, I guess. Jimmy Valiant on the cover of June of 75. Another one with Valiant and Ernie Ladd partnering up in Los Angeles here in July of 74. Official Wrestling. Don Morocco and a Mongolian Stomper, back when Don Morocco had long hair and a mustache, June of 1975. Both guys bloodied up, and Don's getting a big bite out of his forehead. Killer Kowalski, known for biting off or ripping off Yukon Eric's ear some years ago. The Mad Dog Vachon vows to take revenge and rip off the killer's ear, and he goes after it. Mad Dog fangs Kowalski's ear, and you see the blood pouring out of his ear. That's a totally different shot, totally different in wrestling. You never see a guy's ear getting close-up picture on the cover, gushing blood down his face, and the guy looking like he loves it, looks like a maniac. Another one, hey mom, can you buy me this magazine? You're looking at it like you got a fucking screw loose. September of 73, Killer Kowalski. Not many covers, and this what he did here with Yukon made him a legend, and that's where he got his name Killer from. So here's another one. There's another one close up later on we're going to see, but another one bleeding from the mouth. Now it's closer up than the John Tolos issue that we've seen. And wow, it's just like, holy shit, man, what is this, dude? This guy's gushing blood. You can't fake that. And it's not, it's not ketchup. It's not, paint. The guy's actually bleeding. What's going on? It makes you want to grab that thing. Now you got some apartment girls with some kind of, macabre mask on. I don't know what she's got on, some kind of mask, and it's like a butterfly covering her eyes, and you could tell they're both not wrestlers, but this is what they stooped to when they couldn't pay the actual models to come in and do it. They just got anybody with a suit, probably their girlfriends or whatever, and said, hey, I'll give you $20 to be on the cover of this magazine. I'm guessing, I'm just saying, because they couldn't afford to pay anybody with it was like how Stanley West got his people, actually Theo Everett. They would go to agencies, and they would get the women through an agent and their manager. A lot of them, were prostitutes. Some of them were adult film actresses, and then some of them were just like some junkies that needed fucking drug money. It's just honest to God's truth. But that's how they found them. So depending on how much they were, the upper magazines weren't going to pay. Certainly not going to pay for like Seika, who's been on some of Stanley Weston's magazines. Another bullshit cover. The blood doesn't even look real. It's just smeared on her face. Very light, doesn't even pop out red. And then again with that stupid mask, I guess these girls like, hey, I don't want to show my face, just put me under some kind of cover so no one knows who I am. May of 1975, but the Sheik, always happy to bleed on a cover, that's for sure. That picture will be used probably 8 times throughout the decade of the 70s, throughout the different magazines of Wrestling Review and Guide and all them. Another Wrestling Training Illustrated, great looking close-up of Ivan Koloff, who also really bled well. Didn't get to see Ivan too much that I remember. I only really remember him in '83 in the WWF, and then of course when he got the Crockett in the Mid-Atlantic, I remember him a lot more. But young as a kid, you didn't pay much attention to the evil Russian guy or nothing like. You really didn't care. But he bled well, man. Especially a bald guy. Bald guys bleed great anyway. I mean, the blood just gets all over their head and it runs down the side of their neck and shit. It's really cool when bald dudes are bloodied up. Big Book of Wrestling, nothing great. Just got three wrestlers on the cover: Dick Bulldog Brower, Freddy Blassie. The sickening horror of blood matches. Here they are exposing that, trying to make another sale. Small pictures, which won't cost a lot because we won't use that much color ink. So we'll put them small. We'll sensationalize this horror and blood, and that'll suck you right into buying it. And they do a good job on their advertisement. Oh, so here's the other issue I was talking to you about, the bloody mouth coming out of, the bleeding from the mouth. Totally different, man. You didn't see that very often. And I guess, several companies did it maybe once or twice throughout their life, throughout the careers of the company. You didn't see it often, but it always was something different. It was another gimmick that made you think, and a great looking cover for this, just holding his throat. You're thinking he's going to die. You're like, holy shit, I got to read what's inside. Big Bad John. Big Bad John's a guy who never really got much talk or coverage, and he's maybe on 3 magazines. I remember seeing him in Southeastern Championship Wrestling down like Alabama on TV show tapings from that. Taking on Victor Rivera here, October 1974. Rare shot of Big Bad John. That's his biggest cover that he's ever been on. Maybe one other one close to that size. Chief J. Strongbow getting bloodied up, and for the most part, we've been seeing like heels bleed on the cover. Chief J was always a good dude, and it was rare to see a good guy bleed. The good guys bled, don't get me wrong, but it was mostly the heels that would come to get beat up. The good guys get the revenge on the heel, and they're the ones that are bloody. But here's Chief J soaked with blood on the cover of Wrestling Training, another original photo. You'd never see it anywhere else but from this company here, wearing it from top to middle and bottom. Another cheap magazine here. What's his name? Cowboy Bob Ellis here, bloodied up. Cover of Complete Wrestling, a roundup. So there's Complete Wrestling, and then there's Complete Wrestling Roundup, different publications. Make sure you're looking for these issues. Make sure the roundup is there. Sometimes it's not in the search bar when you're trying to find it, or it is and it doesn't pick it up. So Roundup was around for, I think, 6 issues, not much. Couple of decent ones. They're not actually a bad magazine. Some of them, were pretty good. June of 1975. And again, you got your apartment girl just sitting there, like, looking pretty clueless. Looks like she's high as a kite. Just selling her face and showing some cleavage to make you buy a magazine. I don't think any of us ever thought that this was a real picture or a real lady wrestler. I mean, talk about ridiculous. Just some random chick with... Not sure what it is on her face. It's a little bit better than ketchup. It might be paint for all I know, but it's just smeared around. And you can tell she's not bleeding. You can tell she's not wrestling. And then to be on the cover with, former world champion Dory Funk, it's like, wow, what the fuck happened to my career if I'm on the cover with that chick? Now, honestly, it was just for making sales. You put a girl on it, half naked, pervs are going to buy it. Pervs like me. Big Book of Wrestling, Bobby Duncombe with the Blood Blast, November of 1975. Paul Jones, a manager, yes, but actually had a great wrestling career. And here is when he was wrestling on the cover. Paul's on a few covers, bloodied up throughout the different years. This is Big Book of Wrestling, March of 75. Paul again with the notorious matches he had with Ric Flair in the Carolinas. And this particular match would be on several different covers from different publications. It was a popular match and also a popular sale for those two bleeding on the cover. Ivan Putski, who didn't get a whole lot of covers, this would be his one and only bloodied up cover, May of 1978 of Wrestling Monthly. And another good bloodied up cover here, Big Book of Wrestling in September of 75, Bloodied and Butchered. That's the tagline. And of course, you're seeing that, you're buying it back in the day. All right, so there's a look at some of the bloodiest covers of the early, mid, and later 70s. And now we're just going to pop in and take a look at some of the sexploitation, the sexy exploits that wrestling magazines stooped to give us the great sleazy shit that we also loved very much back then. And it all started out with a trial issue of The Wrestler when they put New York's newest in fad apartment wrestling. And they had a picture of 2 girls in a bikini, much better looking than some of the other girls we had seen. Up until this point, no one put an apartment issue out. This was Stanley Weston's original idea. He had them and put them out first, and it came out in 71. Sports Review would get the credit for being the magazine of having, the most... That's where all that was released on Sports Review. But The Wrestler did it first. Sports Review wasn't even out yet. That didn't come out for another 2 years. So they gave it a try, and they wanted to see how it went, and it went really well. Wrestlers hated it. They all wanted him to stop it. And then Stanley Weston says, sorry, man. Sales are great. Fuck off. I'm not changing nothing. I don't work for you. You don't tell me what to put on my magazine. And God bless him, because that's right. Inside Wrestling, now this is the first time Inside Wrestling would put Apartment House Girls on the cover, and this was like a 3/4 spread, and it really pissed some people off, because now you're taking away from, you know, some of the wrestlers who really are trying to get their name built up and try to get the arenas filled, and now you got these apartment girls. You got them over Jimmy Valiant and Greg Valentine, and guys aren't really happy about it. They should be happy about it because the magazine's sold, your article is inside, so whatever it takes for them to buy the magazine. Moving over to Sports Review, good bloody cover with Bobby Duncombe. We've seen Bobby earlier in a different magazine, that same photo. This is just cropped to show his face. Same exact cover, same exact picture. But now we're looking at the apartment girls, and one of which would become a household name, I guess. Our favorite would be Sonara. So Sonara here, the very attractive blonde. She would become the most popular. She would become the ladies' apartment house champion. Could you believe that? And the ladies' champion. Sonara, by far, was the most popular and the prettiest. That's for debate. There was a lot of pretty girls in the Western magazines. Sonara again on the cover, now getting half the magazine with Bruno Sammartino. Holy shit! You got the world champion, and he's sharing the same size magazine page cover as the apartment girls. What is going on? It's selling. That's what's going on. Selling so much so, it would get its entire cover shot. Taking a look at July of 1977, Sports Review. Now the ladies outshining Dusty Rhodes and Mil Mascaras, two of the hottest names in the 1970s, are getting a backseat photo to two chicks in a bikini. That shit is selling, and there's the proof of it. Proof so much that Stanley did it 5 months in a row on Sports Review. Fall of 77, no different. Taking a back seat now is Superstar Graham and Bruno. Wow, two world champions, and the ladies full color, full breast right in your face, and we are skipping to the cash register with our 60 cents, a dollar, whatever it was now in our hands to pay for it. A lot of people didn't go for it. A lot of parents were pissed off too. I remember back in the day trading magazines with friends, and I'm like, this feels light. What happened? What's ripped out of here? Oh, my mom ripped the apartment house pages out. What the fuck she do that for? Well, she doesn't want me looking at that shit. What the fuck, dude? I don't want your magazine. We're trading back, man. I don't want a magazine that's been ripped out. But a lot of parents did that shit. They would take the magazine pages and rip them out if the girls were on the cover. Fucking stupid. You're killing the magazine. But I get it. I mean, you don't want your kid to be some disgusting pervert. Well, guess what? If he is, that's not going to stop him. He's just going to grow bigger and become bigger pervert. Like me. Sports Review, October 1977. Bob Backlund and Andre the Giant taking a backseat to two girls in bikinis wrestling on the top, very 70s looking with the bamboo wicker and the tan background. Jesus. Another one, September 1977, Apartment House, Andre the Giant taking on one half of the tag team champions, the Executioners, in the WWF, September 77. On this cover, Gypsy Margarita, which was another popular Spanish female wrestler, very attractive, and she had a huge rack, and this magazine sold like none other, and she's also, you'll see her inside a couple of issues later on, nude in a few minutes. She was extremely popular, or the issues she was on were extremely popular, I should say. So, it became so popular, it had to happen. It had to become its own single magazine release. Apartment girls battling wrestling ladies, and to suck you in, to pay the $2, double the price, you have to pay $2, but you're going to see them naked. They're like, holy shit, Mom, write me a check. But don't get too excited. If you have these, you already know. If you don't have these and you've never seen the inside, always were kind of curious, but never either came across one or you never had one in your collection, I'm going to show you what you were missing, and I don't think you're going to be too depressed. There was a lot of bull involved. They say they're naked, right? But here's the article, and okay, well, I usually don't like my filth this clean. How come they're censored? What the fuck? And you're kind of pissed off. So it's censored and you're annoyed, but you go over two more pages. Well, actually the next two pages, they're the same. I mean, talk about, would have been a great shot here, and it's blocked off. I'm like, well, come on. They show exactly, if I can find it, I think 5 or 6 pages of the girls naked, and it's hardly anything. It's not the close. They only show tops, no bottoms. Again, it's censored off on certain shots, but you're getting 2 pages of girls here, And this is, we're back with Sonara again, and you get to see her naked anyway. You know, nothing crazy. Little boob shot there. Another decent shot here of her, and a butt shot. But I think that's it. Just let me see. There might be one more. Yeah, no, there isn't. So there it is. So you got, I don't know, what was it? I wasn't counting. 4 or 6 pages. Don't believe the hype, because the rest of the magazine, all 68 pages, are re-released photos of the magazines that were released before, all recycled again. So it was a little bit of a disappointment. It was no different in the next issue, number 2, that came out. What was this one? Winter of 75. All right. So it sold really well, obviously, because they put 4 volumes out. Spring of 76, so just after the winter of 75, excuse me, spring of 76, Sonara on the cover again here, and I'm not even going to open this one because there's nothing inside. There's nothing naked. I think one shot, and it wasn't even worth looking at. Very disappointing in issue number 2. Issue number 3, you have to deliver because guys are going to get pissed. This is in May of 76, and there's a couple photos here of some girls. This one's getting her asshole bit. Girls are topless. Sorry about that. Thing fell on my mic. There's not a whole lot, so you're not really missing much in here. A couple more smaller shots, but they're not wide. No, they're not real close up. They're not the greatest, but you got to see Gypsy Margarita topless, and yeah, mighty nice if I do say so myself. And this is it. So these are the pages that you got. Again, there's a little bit more than the first one, but if you want to see the beginning article of Gypsy, here she is fully clothed still, and this was already in that magazine I just showed you with, you know, the red background. This one. So it's the same shit in this one here, only the next 2 pages are her with no clothes on. They released one more, and this one promised to be full color and bright glossy pages, made in 79, released throughout the 80s, and this one has to be it, right? And I have doubles of all of these, so this is my signed copy. This is as I showed before, Miss Seika, the adult film actress, on the cover here. And I got to talk to her about it a little bit, and she didn't even remember doing it. She goes, I don't even remember even doing that. She goes, you know, she's like, all I can tell you about it is this. The guy paid a lot of money for it because whatever my agent told him, you know, I wasn't cheap. So he paid handsomely to get me to do it, which I thought was, you know, pretty interesting. And she's not even naked inside the magazine. So the pages are glossy, and they are better, but they're not as bright, you know. I mean, I can't complain. It's not bad. Again, Gypsy Margarita topless, and her opponent, both of them with huge racks. Try to find the other pages. There's not much in here. There should have been more. I'll get to the color page. Sonara is on the cover, who's usually on all the covers, is in here in full color, but half the page in color is covered in clothes. So it comes with a centerfold. If you buy this issue and you pay the $100 or whatever, which is insane, I wouldn't pay anything like that. But if you do, make sure this pinup is in it. Even though she's not naked in it, it's still a great 70s shot. I mean, you put that right next to your Farrah Fawcett poster, right? Very hot Sonara, I gotta say. And then she is naked in color in the back here with a decent shot of her cans here. So there it is. So you guys didn't miss out on much. The back cover is a black and white photo. There's not, you know, a whole lot going on. The other ones were just some photos of girls in ridiculous positions that weren't even wrestling. But if you're going to pay a lot of money for it, you're going to pay a lot of money for it. It's not, if you ask me, it's not worth it. If you're a collector and you have to have it, I totally get it. If you're on the fence about it and you're always wondered what it was, you're welcome. There it is. Hopefully I saved you a few dollars and put away any kind of great thoughts you may have had about it, because it's not great. It certainly isn't like a Playboy or nothing like that. I mean, according to today's standards, I mean, that's absolutely nothing. The shit we're exposed to today is ridiculous. You walk around and they have the timekeeper's hammer hanging out of their ass, for Christ's sake, compared to just a couple girls topless, and that would be nothing at all. Which gets us past the blood and gore. This gets us past the sex and the naked ladies. Gets us into the freak section. And when I say freaks, I don't mean freaks as in weirdos and shit. I mean freaks in size, freaks in strength, freaks with gimmicks, those kind of freaks. And if freaks were involved in wrestling since the first day wrestling opened its mats to people. It's part of the wrestling allure coming out of the circuses and the carnivals. And before it made it to the arenas and stuff, that's what attracted you. See a freak lady wrestling 5 guys and see this midget bench press 500 pounds or whatever the fuck it was. So there was always that attraction. The number one attraction of all time will never be duplicated ever, and part of that reason is because wrestling isn't wrestling anymore. But Andre the Giant, the biggest attraction of all time. Attraction meaning he would go primarily to one company. He started in England. He went through his learning through Kendo Nagasaki in Britain, and that's the first guy to pin him. That's the first guy to slam him, and blah blah. We talk all about that in the Andre videos. He goes to Montreal, gets to become a bigger name, gets taken on by the Vachons, has a war with Don Leo Jonathan, and runs the country of Canada before coming down into the AWA and moving in with Vern and becoming a bigger name, and then would get hooked up with the McMahons, and that would pretty much be his outpost where he would be going and then leaving, going and then leaving throughout the rest of his career there with the WWF. Andre the Giant here on the cover of May of '75, and just what a massive sight the dude is. I was lucky enough to shake hands with him as he was walking to the ring, and man, what a giant dude. You know, everyone says it, you know he's big, but you don't know he's big until you get in front of him and see how big he is. It's like, just like the girth on the dude. He's like 3 people wide and just like 2 people tall. It was like unbelievable. July of '74, on the cover of Sports Review, is a girl standing on top of a metal chair combing his hair, and he still has about 2 feet taller than this chick. So they always shot Andre looking really big, really tall, because he was, and that was the attraction. And the magazines always sold out when Andre was on the cover. People wanted to see this giant maniac, only he was a good guy, wasn't a bad guy. Could you imagine if he was bad? Ben Strong's issue of September '75 got Andre the Giant. One of the secrets that you could destroy the Giant with. I was telling you a little bit ago about him and Don Leo Jonathan. You know, Andre the Giant was, 10'7", 800 pounds. Don Leo Jonathan's, 9'12", and 800 pounds himself. The legend keeps growing. Every arena they would go to, they'd be a different size, they'd be a different weight. None of that mattered. Who gives a shit? It doesn't matter what he weighed. He was a big dude, and that's all we should care about. Taking on Don Leo with some fantastic wars in Canada. They didn't spill over too much to the States, but it was very successful up north, and a great looking cover of these two on the cover. And there's a match of those two in one of their matches, and the recycled stories from Best of the Wrestler. So in the earlier years in Canada, the issue is making it to the cover of Best of the Wrestler. Andre became so popular, he without a doubt became the best looking Bigfoot of all time. Still to this day, they can't make Bigfoot look good. I mean, Bigfoot people, they have the worst pictures and the worst quality shit. This is 1975, 1976. Look how awesome that costume is. And like the Bigfoot believers are out there saying, there's no such thing as a costume. Costumes sucked back then. There was no way to make a good costume. Those Gimlin tapes and Sasquatch being filmed, out in Washington. There was no way that was a suit. No one's that tall. Well, bullshit. Andre's 8 foot tall. And look at this costume they got on him. The most realistic looking Sasquatch ever filmed is right here on this episode of the $6 Million Man. What a great looking costume. And it looks legit. If I was to see a Bigfoot, I would think it would look like that. But some of the shit out there with the conspiracy people are ridiculous. They most certainly had suits. They most certainly have people who can, fill out this and look really, really good, just like they did. And here's a proof of it in 1975. So today, we should have some really good shots of it, and you don't. Andre, no stranger to bleeding, one of his first covers on Wrestling's Greatest Battles, spring of '79, gushing blood here. And I always like this font, very stylistic of the '70s with that look, like that carnival circus kind of a look. And always like that cover of the Greatest Battles. Andre winning the tournaments out west in Los Angeles for the yearly $25,000 Battle Royal they would have once a year. Bruno won it once. Andre, I think Mascaris won it also once. Great looking shot of Andre and another attraction, Ox Baker. Ox Baker looking really, really small here. He's not that small. Ox is a very huge dude. I got to meet him and I couldn't believe how tall he was. And but you know, they shoot this from low and they shoot up at it. So whoever is taking this picture has their forearms resting on the ring apron below the bottom rope or so and shooting up at Andre, making him look 10 times bigger. I never thought to bring this with me when I met Ox. I got this 8x10 and I had him sign all my Escape from New York shit. I'm a big Escape from New York fan. I have a couple posters and some other shit that I had him sign. I really kicked myself in the ass for not bringing this to have Ox sign that. Andre, again, on the cover of a Japanese magazine. This is his death issue. It discusses when he passed away. And you see from top to bottom, and even part of his foot's cut off. They're not even showing it. He's got the entire cover, bottom to top of the Japanese issue. I can't see the date. I don't remember exactly the date that he passed away, but it's in that year if you're looking for that. Pro Wrestling Monthly Special issue, Andre the Giant's death issue is what it would be titled as if you want to find it. Why is this here? Oh, Ox Baker's on the bottom. Ox isn't on very many covers. He's on a couple, and this is just another one. These are the Royal Kangaroos, anyway. Lord Jonathan Boyd here, who would become later on one half of the sheep herders, or in certain parts of the world they were called the Kiwis. He would no stranger for blood and guts, man. He's in a couple magazines, man, soaked in blood. He had real long hair before he shaved his head and became one of the sheep herders. But cool, the Royal Kangaroos weren't around for very long, not to be mixed up with the other kangaroos, original kangaroos before them. We have the Giants, and we also had our masked men of the 1970s. Mil Mascaras, of course, being the most popular Mexican wrestler, most popular masked wrestler of all time. Mil is on the cover of 78 Annual. Here he is again with taking on Eric the Red in an armbar, defending the IWA Heavyweight Championship. And I always like this cover because it just has that font looking like that, and it's all picture. There's no banner going across, cutting anything off. It's just a photo of two guys wrestling on the cover. One of my favorite covers, just because of them, watching them fully wrestle on the cover. I like them more than this posed cover, although this is a pretty cool cover. Never has there been a full face cover up shot, not since Bobby Heenan's bloody face. Now you have Mascaras' mask on the cover. Very unique cover to have a meal like this in November of '75. Summer 77, and Mascaras again on the cover. He would be on more covers than just about anyone else in the 70s besides Dusty Rhodes and Superstar Billy. Here he is with Dusty Rhodes again on the first issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, photo taken at the Westchester County Center in White Plains, New York. Mil had a brother, Dos Caras, and this is February 74. Very much looks like Mil here, same body type. As a kid, we always thought that was Mil, especially in the back issues when we were looking through. We were like, yeah, I have enough magazines with Mil. I don't want that one. Only to come to find out it's his brother Dos. He's not on very many covers at all. He's on a ton in Japan. And Mil's second brother, El Psychedelico, makes his first appearance on a cover of a Western magazine on 1972 Annual, issue number 3, is it? Issue number 3, and very small photo of him. He didn't wrestle much in the States. I mean, he did in Los Angeles, but mostly in Mexico, a lot in Japan. He's on a lot of Japanese covers. So here's a better picture of El Psychedelico on the cover. Here you get to see his mask, and it's that spiral going into the center of the circle. Pretty cool. Sharing the cover with another big man himself, Bobo Brazil. And one more cover of Psychedelico. Here he is in Los Angeles here. He actually had a match with his brother, and Mil didn't know it was him, apparently. And there's a big article about that, too. I don't know how much kayfabe it was in that story or not, but he said he didn't realize it was his brother till after the match. He hasn't seen him in many years, and all of a sudden he wanted to surprise him, and they had a match together. Sounds cool as a story, but who knows, right? Let's see. We also had Mr. Wrestling, and I really don't know much about Mr. Wrestling. He was like before my time. Here's an issue of 75. Before my time, as in, growing at 75, so I'm like 6 years old, going on 7, whatever. You never heard of the guy, so it wasn't in my territory, but he was on the radar of a lot of people down south in mid-Atlantic, and it was a huge name. And but just I didn't have much experience with the guy. Same can go with Mr. Wrestling too. I only had seen him a few times when he made it to the WWF in '84. Was the first time I seen him on live TV, and he wasn't in the territory for very long. That was when the Black Sunday things happened, when McMahon bought out Georgia and went to their TV and pissed off, a quarter of the nation. Mr. Wrestling 2 on the cover with Big Ernie Ladd in '79. They had some great feuds in Mid-South with Bill Watts in Oklahoma. Wrestling 2 again. He was on several covers throughout the years. In June of 1979 is another one of The Wrestler. We also had a Mummy, as silly or stupid as it might sound. It worked for its time because it wasn't something long. It was something that was out that was quick, and he didn't make a career out of it, and everyone knew it was kind of corny. Here comes this crazy mummy, this dead guy making it to the ring, and it was just he was like a hired gun. He wasn't really there to be out there for the next 20 years making a career out of it, and it wouldn't have worked anyway because the '70s wouldn't have put up with it. The UFO is another one who I explained before. This magazine always creeped me out as a kid. It was just like, what is this? Who are these wrestlers? And I never seen them before. And what is it with the magazine? It looks all weird and creepy. It's like, what's going on? Now I like it a lot because, at the time it was just, I'm so used to the clean, pristine magazines of Stanley Weston. And then I come across something like this that's like all weird and shit. And like, who's this UFO guy? UFO spent a lot of time up in Canada, didn't come to the States at all, I don't think. And that's why I really never knew who he was. And only caught him on some tape trading days when I got some Montreal wrestling and some British Columbia stuff. Another one, Dick Beyer, the real name, the Destroyer, also wasn't on very many covers, but extremely popular and very loved in Japan. Held that American Championship in all Japan for many years. Look at that cover. Look at that mush, man. Look, missing his teeth. Looking all nasty, like he just robbed a bank. Classic, 70s stereotype of a bank robber or a prowler, right? Again, on the cover here, on the Wrestling Monthly, another offbeat magazine, another one that's weird and just kind of like off compared to all the other ones. It's just got a real sleazy feel and look to it. He would have a hell of a war with Mil Mascaras from between 71 and 78 in all Japan. Mascaras does get the championship from the Destroyer, but it's not in this issue. This issue covers their October of '73 match, which I thought it is my absolute all-time favorite match of all time. Love it. Hard match to find. It was on YouTube, then it was gone, and it was a lousy copy of it, but I have it on DVD. I watch it a lot. So it was a great match. Andre gets the cover, but the Destroyer on the bottom now with a new concept we have never seen before. A man in a bloody mask. What a great looking shot that is. Totally different. No one ever bled through the mask before that we got to see on a cover of a magazine. And it's on this Wrestling Review issue, June of 1973. Like I said, very popular in Japan. And he had some wars with Abdullah the Butcher. Abdullah would take the title from him. They would take it back to each other a few different times. This is October of '74. Pro Wrestling Monthly. Pro Wrestling Monthly back again in June of '74. That one was October '74. This one is June '74. Again in the headlock. Again he's bleeding. Sorry, I bypassed that again. Both guys are bleeding, and here's the Destroyer again with a good bloody shot. He's just turned there, and you can't catch the full shot of it. But again, he bled through his mask a lot in Japan. Here too, you can't see it as well. Inside the pages are all color, and you can see it. So it's pretty neat to see shit like that. Totally different than what we were seeing up here. We also had a convict, some 400-pound convict who just escaped from prison, early 70s, only magazine cover that he was on. He may have been on one of the small pictures somewhere, but this is by far the biggest picture he had gotten in Inside Wrestling of July '72. He didn't wrestle in Japan, but he was his name spread far, and they were very interested. And here he is on the cover of Gong 1970 of May's issue. This issue also has Buddy Rogers' rookie card in it. The Gong issues in the 70s also had cards, and they would put out like 5 or no, probably more than that, like maybe 8 in each issue every other month or so, and you had to find out which ones had the cards. The cards are very expensive. So if you see this one and it's costing $150, it's because the Rogers card's in it. This is expensive anyway. I mean, without the card, you can see it go for $70 too. But yeah, if it's a lot, it's because the card is in it. And if you're paying a lot, make sure the card is in it. It's a shot with him as the world champ, wearing the belt, even though the belt was lost by then. This is like 10 years later, but it still had Rogers' card. Luthez is in one also. Bruno was in one. A lot of those go for big money. The Andre the Giant card goes for thousands. It's I explain that in other videos. The Andre card is absolutely crazy. This is the original Kabuki, not with a mask, but with the makeup, and that's something you didn't see hardly at all in the 1970s. A guy wearing full face paint, and if it did, it was usually like a Japanese or an Oriental type of mystery kind of guy with the paint. But here's your first look at a face painted on the cover. Inside, I wanted to show you real quick. Does anyone know Beautiful Bobby, the original Beautiful Bobby? Beautiful Bobby, what was his last name? Remus. Beautiful Bobby Remus. Anyone know who it is? Yeah, you know who he is. You just don't recognize him. Here's another shot of him. Recognize him now? Sergeant Slaughter, before he was Sergeant Slaughter. Beautiful Bobby. He wore the tie-dye. He was more of a hippie. He had that, I don't know what the hell kind of hat that's called. One of them, weird hats from the 70s and 60s that pimps wore, I think. I don't even know what that is. But here he was, man, Sergeant Slaughter. Before he was Sergeant Slaughter, he was a lot bigger. He was like, 350 pounds. He cut a lot of weight down and slimmed up before he became the Sarge. And there he is in this issue. If you're a Sarge fan, June of 77, Wrestling Monthly with the Kabuki on the cover. He mostly wrestled down south, again, with Memphis area. I seen some tape of him, and I think it was Knoxville or Alabama, not too long ago when I got some DVDs, a big shipment like a couple of months ago, and he was actually on there in a couple matches. Never heard of him until you guys told me about him. Again, thanks to everybody who writes in, leaves a comment. I learned just as much from you guys as you guys learn about the magazines from me. So all your comments are deeply appreciated. I always enjoy talking to all you dudes, man. You're always really cool, a lot of fun to talk to, and everyone's like respectful, and no one's a jerk off, and it's just cool, man. So thanks for chiming in a lot. It's always looks forward to talking with everybody. Kabuki got another one on Roundup, Complete Wrestling Roundup, on December of 1974. We even had the Hells Angels, and we had the Chain Gang. And Hells Angels were what is it? Dupree and I want to see Buddy Colt. Jesus Christ. Chris Colt. Chris Colt was one of the Chain Gang. This is Fargo was one of. Fargo had the Chain Gang. Hell's Angels was Dupree and Colt. This was their gimmick. They were kind of like bikers. They wore the Nazi armbands and the swastika chains and also with the necklaces and shit, dressed like bikers. And also the Hell's Angels. The Hell's Angels, who was with Colt and Dupree, the real Hell's Angels caught on to it, and the rumor got out they were coming to fucking kill the dudes for wearing their colors and shit. And the gimmick was dropped immediately. And I know they wrestled in Detroit for the Sheik and in the 60s, and Colt would change his gimmick and go with the makeup. So here's Chris Colt's transformation into the new gimmick, which was more like an Alice Cooper kind of rocker kind of person. And here he's wearing a Janis Joplin shirt. He's got the boa around his neck. He's got the Alice Cooper or the Crow paint on his face. His face paint would change differently. He would have that with like a bunch of like lines going look more like a star or a sundial kind of a face. But again, another guy ahead of the curve from the 80s with the flamboyant clothes and the face paint. Not many did it. He didn't go crazy with the paint, but nonetheless, he still wore the makeup, and no one really did shit like that in 1970. We had some real popular midgets. And I remember seeing this one particular, slap him on his head as he walked by. I slapped him, but we were shaking hands, and we did it with the good guy midgets. I didn't know who was good and who was bad. So, I reached out just to tap this one, and I hit him on his head, and the guy turned around and looked like he wanted to fucking kill me. I'm like, what the hell's this guy's problem? Kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it. I'm only about, 9 or 10. This is, late 70s. And I'm like, I was just in shock. I never forgot to do it. I'm like, this little motherfucker wanted to come after me. But, that's what heels did. This was given. I got this from John Arezzi. My boy John hooked me up with this. You guys know who John is. Famous world the photographer, Madison Square Garden. He ran the fan club for Freddy Blassie years ago. Had all the great shots from the Garden. This was in his personal collection, and he hooked me up with it. I'm like, this is the only issue of Wrestling World that I need. I don't have it. So thanks, John. He even wrote a little thing on the bottom. To Bill, your collection is amazing. Best wishes, John. John's a great dude. He's got a podcast now. He talks wrestling, talks Mets baseball. He's got a good book out, especially if you like baseball. He talks about the Mets a lot, and John's just a really cool dude. So thanks, John. I still got it, and it's never leaving. We also had female midgets, and very rare to see female midgets on the cover. Diamond Lil and Darlene Dagmeyer. Darlene here, Diamond up front. She was a protege of the fabulous Moolah, and Moolah kind of took care of her throughout the years. She lived with Moolah for most of her life, and this is February '74. Not cheap issue, not easy to find either, man. I remember this one being on the expensive side, and not very popular out there. It's if it's out there, it's sold fast. Another big guy, Happy Humphrey. I mean, this guy basically needed a shower curtain to cover himself. Talk about huge. His weight from 800 pounds to 1,000 pounds. Depending on what magazine you read. But another, big freakish style guy, and they're exploiting it here too. The freaks, good and bad for wrestling. This is the Lady Angel, or just the Angel. She came out of the circus from the 40s and 50s, came into wrestling, and they put her with the French Angel, who oddly enough, kind of looked exactly like her. Only his head and cranium was a lot bigger than this. But man, he was. They look exactly alike when the two angels were together. It's all in this issue of Wrestling Monthly. The date is so dark, February of 1977, with Happy Hump on the cover with the Angel. Another big man, Haystacks Calhoun, was also another attraction, and being whatever his size is, 600 pounds, 700 pounds, it grew by the location and by the magazine cover. And here's just a good-looking shot of the Haystacks in July of '72. The wrestler. Story about Haystacks now, at 517 pounds, a laughing stock as a teenager, to now a $100,000 attraction, and a bloodied up Haystacks on the cover of Wrestling Monthly. Here he is taking on the Sheik in Big Book of Wrestling, March of '76. Andre the Giant with a couple of more midget men on the cover of Wrestling Monthly. Andre, that was big. Andre would be in a match with two midgets and a six-man versus, three regular sized guys. And it was more of like a comedy act than anything, but they treated it real. It wasn't blatantly in your face, embarrassingly stupid comedy like the bullshit you see today. I mean, they treated it, right, and it was a little more respected, to where, you could have pulled it off as real because Andre was there, and Andre would come to the rescue if anyone ever got hurt. And anytime a big guy would get in, they would come in and do something stupid, roll on them. Andre would throw them, sail them across the ring, and then onto the other guy, and they would go flying down for the pin. It was, it was neat little things that you get, lighthearted stuff that you could see for wrestling that, could pass for it. This one I got two stuck. Yeah. This is not Bruiser Brody. This looks a lot like him, for God's sake. The Canadian Wolfman, and what a mush he's got. Look at that face, man. Got that dead animal fur on top of his head, equally as long as his beard. The raccoon skin, that is, rather. He had a long tail on the back with a raccoon tail. It would hang down the back. Really wild-looking dude. He was lean, thin, hairy-chested guy. Made his rounds, but not for very long. This would be only his second cover here, and it's a little more in color on the Big Book of Wrestling here, talking about the Wild Man, the Wolfman. And on the bottom here, Bobby Heenan and Baron von Raschke get the bloody cover on the bottom. Two good-looking shots there. That should have been your main cover. I mean, two great, bright colored up red, Bobby's hair blonde, the other guy's bald. That blood would have been awesome if they just let that come out to full page. Would have been a lot better. We also had several Sheiks in the business as we round off this video here, and we're looking at one of them, the Great Mephisto. Great Mephisto spent most of his career out in California, where he would go back and forth with Patterson and exchange the United States Heavyweight Championship belt. It was a total, a total theft from the Sheik, the real Sheik, the original Sheik Ed Farhat. But a lot of people did pull off different Sheiks. The worst one probably was the one in Portland, I guess. I forget his real name, some long Arab name, and Sheik whatever, and he said oil on the back of his trunks, and had like a camel on the front side of his trunks. And I think from what I remember, he spoke like perfect English. He didn't even have an accent. It was like so unbelievable. And he was skinny and small. It just didn't work. Mephisto did it a lot better. He had also became a manager afterwards, and he I remember him on TV. He managed the Manchurians and Southeastern Championship Wrestling for the Fullers, and had a decent career as a manager from that point on. But like I said, mostly the West Coast, you would see the Great Mephisto. Abdullah the Butcher, another freak, also considered another kind of a Sheik, because he also wore the turban, but totally different because of his size. He was black, so he was a different race. And like, what is this guy? He's got that long turban on. He's got those boots with the curl up in the front with the camels and shit. What is this guy, right? He didn't talk at all, which really freaked you out. Awesome gimmick, totally loved it. Is it a Sheik ripoff? I don't call it that. I mean, it's a lot different. Like I said, he's a different guy. He's darker skinned. He's like 300 pounds heavier than the Sheik. He wore the headdress, but it came all the way down to like his middle of his back or below, and it looked like a robe. The Sheik didn't wear a headpiece like that, so it was different in many ways. Bleeding wise and wrestling wise, yes, they were the same. But great looking shot. Abdullah the Butcher is not on any covers in the United States in the 70s, except for like one corner shot on Wrestling Review. Terrible. So he really didn't take off until the 80s in popularity on his covers. In Japan, he was on a shitload of covers. I'm just going to show you a handful of them here, just so you can get a good look at Abdullah as he's starting out in the 70s. He started in the 60s, but I mean, actually getting popular, he's starting to get popular in the 70s in Japan. Him against Terry Funk. Another one here on the cover, squeezing the forehead. Great looking bloody shot of him on the cover here, looking down at his opponent. He also partnered up with the Sheik. They would also have wars together, but they also partnered up as well and taking on the Funks. And those four would have tremendous wars in All Japan in 78 and 79 when they competed in the All Japan World Tag Team Tournament. 2 years in a row they faced off, and they took that match on the road for the next 3 years, selling out everywhere, and it was huge in Japan. Dory Terry Funk versus Sheik and Abdullah, and they spilled blood all over the country of Japan. Another cover, this is another year later in the tournament, and the Sheik is now putting the spike into Terry Funk's ear. Abdullah looking on. All men are fucking blood soaked. What a crazy looking cover. Awesome looking cover if you like blood and gore and you're a fan of the Sheik and Abdullah. What a match they put on, and here they are, just a real close-up shot. What a picture. Wow. I mean, what a crazy looking cover. I love it. One of the better gory ones that come out of Japan, and a lot more pictures inside. This is September 75 issue of Gong, and the color photos inside, you can see they're all color, so it really brightens up the match for you. And here is Abdullah with the headdress, and you can see it goes all the way down to his back. There's lower back part, and a lot different than the Sheik's, but still kind of the same gimmick for sure, without a doubt, but a lot different as well. But there would only be one Sheik, and no one did it better than Ed Farhat, as we all know. The Sheik, in my opinion, the greatest the greatest heel and the greatest gimmick of all time. Nothing will ever top it. Well, nothing can ever top it, because there is no more heels, there is no more gimmicks, and there is nobody that treats wrestling as real as him. They say that you'll never act a day in your life if you just be yourself, and they tell actors that when they go to acting classes. And it's the honest to God's truth, because that's the Sheik himself. He didn't talk. He didn't be seen with people. He treated his character exactly the way he liked it, and the way he was private, and didn't jump around and throw it in people's faces. He was just a very, very what's the word? Deceiving, also mysterious and quiet, and it can be very intimidating when someone's like that. You know, you can scare people a lot more not saying anything than you can with your bullshit words. And nobody pulled it off better in silence than the Sheik. He would show you in his actions. And then you put him in the ring. Was he the greatest wrestler? No, he doesn't have to be. That's not why we're there to see him. And we're there to see him butcher people up. Did we go see Jean-Claude Van Damme in the 80s because we wanted to see him act? No, he ain't no fucking actor. We wanted to see him kick people in the face. And that's what we did. And that's what we paid to see. And that's what we paid to see the Sheik for. We paid to see everything and all of him all in one package because we knew what we were going to get with the Sheik. And nobody played it better than him. There's a great shot of him close up on the cover of Gong, 1974 in December. And probably the best magazine cover with Sheik of all time is this Ben Strong issue, June 1975, with his championship belts. He retired as the champion, came into the company, won the championship. Won the championship and kept it in his company. And people will say, "Oh well, he's the same thing." And he never lost the belt, and he never got pinned. Who gives a fuck what he did? First of all, that's none of your business. I mean, if you're looking at wrestling as, well, that guy didn't sell, or that guy can't throw a punch, or then you're a moron, dude. You're totally missing the point of professional wrestling. Your job is to buy a ticket. Sit your ass in a seat, shut the fuck up and watch the match. If you're viewing wrestling as this guy isn't selling or this guy isn't over or he needs to do this or needs to do that, you're totally missing the concept. You're not getting what wrestling is, okay? You're supposed to suspend your belief. We know Batman's not going to, have... it's not real, and you know that he's going to, Batman threw the grappling hook up there the wrong way, or he grabbed the wrong side of his utility belt. It's like stupid shit that you're saying. It just, that's not supposed to be like that. Wrestling is the same way, and you're trying to make it more than what it is. You're supposed to suspend your belief and look at the characters and cheer on somebody or boo somebody, and that's it. Sheik, without a doubt, the greatest look I feel of him on this cover, June of 1975, Ben Strong, with the United States belt. And yes, he did lose it. He lost the belt 16 times. Gino Hernandez, Bobo Brazil, Pampero Firpo, Bulldog Kent, Mark Lewin. I mean, I can go on. I named them all in one of the videos before. He lost the belt a ton of times. He lost plenty of matches. Did Bruno Sammartino, you're bitching about him? He held the belt for 15 years combined, but he only lost the belt twice. Right? The Sheik lost it 16 times. So you can't say he didn't lose the belt. He lost it a lot. And that was his gimmick, and that was his deal. Why do you give a fuck what the Sheik did? Your job is to watch him and not complain about why he acts in the ring or outside the ring. You're really missing the point. Sheik, August 74, taking a chunk out of Dory Funk's head, and great looking shot of him. Again, we're looking now at Big Bad John back on the cover with Rivera in one of their matches from earlier. Same match that was from the other magazine, but I just had it placed further back in the video because of the Sheik was the main draw for that one. Sheik was also known for throwing fire. This is your first magazine. You're getting to see that. The only time any magazine covered that was with the Sheik doing it, and here he is lighting up the ball of fire, throwing the flame into the face here, and missing the wrestler and getting hit in the face was the referee, Red Shoes, and this is how deep kayfabe was. Okay, so now you're going to have to burn on your face. Got some sandpaper, scratched the shit out of his face until it burned and started to bleed, and then covered it up. And then here's how you have to go out of your house for the next 3 weeks. That's what it meant to people. That's how serious it was taken, because that's what it was worth. When you expose everything, the fun's gone now, and you ruined it. So it's shit like that makes you think, wow, then is wrestling really real? I mean, look at his face. He can't fake that. Why would he be out here 2 weeks later wearing that face if it was fake? Wow, man, just this shit is real. So it always made you wonder. And that's what always brought us back. And when people have nothing to wonder and people have nothing to string them along, they're not going to come to it anymore. And the proof is in the stands today or on the television today. It's complete dog shit. And you reap what you sow. You wanted to know all about it? There you go. And here's your product. Go enjoy. Don't come over to my decade and bash it. Fuck you. Stay out of it. You ruined it, so you stay up there and keep doing what you're doing, and we're going to live in our life back in this direction here when it was a lot more fun. Sheik on the front cover now getting the fire thrown in the face. Ernie Ladd, only shot of him on a cover throwing fire. Came from one of the cheaper magazines, Wrestling Sports Stars, but a great cover nonetheless. Sheik, I always thought this was a Sheik on the cover I was right but wrong. This is Tex McKenzie. The Sheik is down here. I always thought that was a Sheik. I'm talking about looking through the little squares in the back of the magazines, and it wasn't until I got it I realized, I was like, wow, that's Tex McKenzie. Good looking shot here of the Sheik holding the spike on the Big Book of Wrestling, September 77. Dick the Bruiser, hell of a war with the Sheik. Battle of Detroit, Battle of Indy, Battle of the Companies. Throughout the 70s, I think the war was over around 75 or so, but every magazine capitalizing on that war, including Japan, and another great shot of Sheik and Dick the Bruiser on this cover of Gong, 1975. Another creepy looking weird shot. There's that girl again in a different pose with the blood on her face. Bobby Shane passing away, the king, dead at 28, and the Sheik on the cover here with Don Leo, June of 1975. I showed this magazine before, and I just thought I'd show it again because it's been a long time. This was released, this was 1971, and it came out in October, and there was a mistake made. This date here says July of 71, and it's very rare. It was released early. From what I was able to find out, this was sent to the mail away, people with subscriptions and mail away first, until they caught on that was the wrong date, and then they pulled the presses and then changed them. So only a handful of those Julys went out. So if you see this and it's selling for a lot of money, that's why. Check the date. I don't know how much it would sell for anymore. I've seen people wanting them and asking for them and willing to pay money for them. So some people probably don't even know about it, but now you know. So this is, here is the October 71 right up here, and then like I said, July 71 is this issue. Same cover, inside's a little bit different. The articles are switched around, same articles, but they're just in different order. One might be on page 7, the other magazine it's on page 12. And the advertisements were also different. So it's a little bit different, but the same thing. And some people don't give a shit, just letting you know. If you see one that's really expensive, that's why. Sheik and Dory Funk take the cover of Wrestling Guide. Great magazine if you're a Sheik fan. It's got all his statistics, all his battles, and all his wins and losses and stuff like that are in this issue of the Sheik. 7 pages full of photos and statistics. Big Book of Wrestling, September 72. Cheaper looking magazine with Lola Kiss, whoever that might be, on the cover. Wrestling Monthly, June of 1974, with the Sheik and the surprised look on his face. Good looking cover of the Sheik in July of 75, Wrestling Monthly, doing the chokehold, having his tongue hanging out. Another good one with Sheik on the lesser popular issue of Wrestling Monthly, March 75. And the Sheik's here. It looks like he's getting hung by the ring ropes of sorts. And Gypsy Joe is taking on Mad Dog Vachon, smashing the timekeeper's bell into his head. Sheik now on a rare magazine, Pro Wrestling 73 Annual. This is the one and only magazine that this company put out for wrestling. They were a actually a sports magazine. They would mostly put out baseball, football, and basketball, and they just jumped in on the craze of the popularity of the 70s and put out a single wrestling issue. I'm not sure if it's popular or if it's hard to get, but it's out there, and if you're looking for one that's totally different with original pictures, it's this Wrestling 73 Annual. Wrestling World put out a Sheik photo, big close-up shot of just the bloody side of his face. You can see that beard there, that funky cut he has there, that pork chop cut into the mustache and beard on the cover. And this is August of 1972. Sheik, great shot of him driving in the spike into the head of Harley Race, and fall of 78, classic Bill Apter magazine, awesome. And ended out with the Sheik, another classic issue of the Inside Wrestling, Terry Funk getting the bloody shot here inside the camel clutch of the Sheik. So there it is. A look back at the sleazy, slimy, bloody, sexy, dirty 70s and all the filthy magazines that came along with it, man. We covered a lot of stuff, from the ladies to the freaks to the blood, and it was very reminiscent of a time that we're never ever going to see again. That might be a good thing, but it was just it was what it was, and it came out in its movies and its music and also its magazines and all of its sleazy glory. There we are, full look back on 1970s, and we'll see you dudes on the next.